Hi there. I am the CRM Ninja, and on today's episode of the Oops Factor, I have Geetha Sivasailam. Welcome to the show, Geetha.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you here as well. I've seen lots of the stuff you do on social and the rest of it, and was really excited when you signed up to come on the show.
Yay, I'm glad you thought of me, and I'm excited to come share some fun stuff here.
Oh, I'm sure we'll cover some very fun stuff. But before we get to, oops style fun stuff, my background is of food because I understand that you're a foodie. Can you
Oh, yes, I
tell
am.
me how you got into it or how it started and the sort of thing you enjoy doing for that?
Yeah, I think it started from home. My mom's always someone who tried different cuisines, and she'd always, be cooking up something new. And me as a kid, I'd be the tester, right? And I enjoyed doing that. And so it started with that. She's always trying new recipes and things. I kind of just picked that up from her, and I'm trying different things. And I'm vegetarian, but take eggs. I just don't do seafood or meat.
Okay.
So I'm always on the lookout for some creative and simple, easy to make, like quickly put together recipes that would be a good use of my time and still keep it healthy and nutritious. I'm always on the lookout for those.
Awesome. Where do you get inspirations from for those sort of things?
I think social media. Follow a couple of people, follow their blogging and their tidbits. And there's just so many amazing people out there that you can get ideas from. So that's what I do. I just follow them, and then I try to mash up from pick things from here and there, mash them up, and
Yeah.
see, hey, maybe this might make a new recipe. So try them, and then see if they turn out well. Then move on to the next one.
Awesome stuff. Do you grow any of your own vegetables?
I used to. I haven't been doing that in this past pandemic. Just been keeping indoors, and we've had some foundational issues and fixes going on around the house. So our
Ouch.
whole backyard has been a mess for this past year, and so I haven't been. So I'm usually into herbs. I think that's what I try to grow. I haven't
Okay.
haven't I have to get back to that once everything is back and normal in my backyard. I need to get back to growing some herbs for sure.
Yes. Now it's obviously with construction, other stuff or repairs going on, and they just have this habit of taking over all the available space. But and then
Yes.
when lockdown started, we had just moved into our place, and we actually started off and did it was my wife's project, right? I want to be very clear about this to everybody. This is my wife's baby. I just dig out the places and construct all the things together to it, and she takes care of it. But we started off with one vegetable plot, and that's expanded and expanded, and we have multiple things,
Nice.
and we have so many different things, and I call it her veggie babies. But it's really interesting to see and to get children involved in it.
Oh, I totally agree. I think that's how I grew up. Like my mom used to do that. And it's funny like how I've seen her go talk to plants, and she's someone who really believes in that. Like you have to talk to them. You have to like pour out all your love to them, and they give back the same way. So hopefully I can keep up with that once everything gets back to normal in my backyard, and I can start growing, maybe start again with my miniature plots and then expand. But it's a good stress buster for sure, and a
True.
good way to keep kiddos occupied. I definitely agree with that.
Very true. So going from enjoying and loving food to the oops factor, what do you have to share with us today?
Yeah, so I think I have had clients who, um, call you up all of a sudden and say, "Hey, our flows are not working, my apps are not working," and guess what? They turned on MFA on their service accounts. So
Oh,
yeah,
hold
so
on a minute. So
that.
so so we're talking about security implementations here with nothing to actually to do with the solutions.
Yeah, it happens. It happens because it's a policy or just something that the organizations pick up on the way, and for more around security implementations, they choose to have multi-factor authentication, which we're seeing is pretty normal for lots of
Yeah.
organizations trying to have multi-layers of security implemented. And but that happens where you have service accounts, even though their passwords are set to not expire, you still have MFA on them. And then, and if your flows haven't been running every week or in the past 14 days, and then you have MFA enabled, and suddenly someone kicks off a flow, and then it doesn't work.
How
So
how badly has it brought down client systems?
I think it's I should say that it's more of a disruption to the business continuity, right? They're
Okay.
expecting certain things to work, and then everything was working until last week, and today we don't see anything working. Like, what's going on? And then it's like, who changed the flow? Nobody changed it. No, there's been no updates. Like all of a sudden, my flow doesn't work anymore. Or my connections are broken. They say fix it. Things like that. I think thankfully it hasn't been like a showstopper
Okay.
so far, but it's been more around just having disruptions in their business continuity, things that have dependencies on this process. They all kind of just get stalled until you figure out what's going on.
Got it. So when something like this happens, client calls up and says, I mean, clients can say the most interesting things at times, but if the clients call up and say something stopped working, what would you say is the best process? How do you diagnose such things happening? Because there could be a variety of factors around this, right?
Yeah. So I think I always ask them for a screenshot of the error message. What do you see on your flow when it says error? And then the moment you look at the error message, you can tell this is MFA related because you've seen so many of those with your past experiences. It's like, okay, I know this is. And then the next question is, did you enable an MFA on your accounts? Because you normally do provide the recommendations, like if you have a service account, try and stay away from getting MFA enabled. But I understand sometimes IT, they look at it as as long if an account has a user ID and a password, they have to have MFA enabled. That's kind of like the ground rule
Yeah.
they go with. But if that's the case, then you have to at least have your flows running actively so their tokens don't expire. But yeah, I think that's the first step. Send me a screenshot, and then I go from there. And then I'll be like, okay, this says MFA enabled. When was the last time? Go look at your flow run. When did it run the last time? Go to your connection, see if you see the little flag that says, hey, something went wrong, go fix it. Things like that. I think that's always like the trail of events that you do. Just makes it much more easier and efficient use of both our time and the client's time to troubleshoot.
That's true. And especially if and I know it from stuff that I've dealt with, not specifically MFA, although I've actually handled that scenario myself, that an error messages come up and you're like, I know what the 32651 is. And the client's looking at going, how the heck do you know that? You're like,
I think it's like we all just get used to making it, and then eventually it becomes like, been there, done that. We've seen
yep,
this. You know what exactly this is. Yeah.
very true. So how do you approach organizations and explain to them that sometimes, because like security is very important. I absolutely understand and I support that in the right way. But you can have organizations whereby you're working with a business to implement a solution and you say service accounts, although they're not proper service accounts, but you say we refer to them as service accounts, can be logged in with, and they shouldn't be having MFA. On the other hand, you have IT who say, no, absolutely, you have to have MFA on anything and everything. How do you handle those sorts of conversations with them to ensure that they're enabled in the right way and actually understand, number one, what's needing to be done, and get them to accept that this needs to be an exception to the rule?
Yeah, and I think part of the disconnect is also awareness, right? Just the lack of awareness around how things work, especially with MFA and then your connections and the Power Platform ecosystem, just how they work together and how things can break. So I normally do lay it out for them. We'll start the pros. Hey, MFA is great. You do want to have MFA enabled. We're not going to block you from that. But if you can, for service accounts, let's try not to put MFA on top of it so that your processes just run. But if they do come back saying, nope, we can change that. That's our policy. That's how we do it. Then we go on to the next advanced level of having conversations around asking them if they can work with conditional access policies, or maybe they can even work with some of the settings for the MFA, like maybe with the age for the life tokens, the expiration policies and things like that. It's going to work with that and see if they can kind of get a good, well, I should say best of both worlds. You want to use MFA, but still, let's see if you can extend this. Let's have it set up in a way that you don't disrupt processes. So, and I always list out the critical business processes if there are any, like if there are big showstoppers and if there are projects that we worked on for the client, was like, hey, 1, 2, and 3 are big showstoppers. If this fails, then you do have, here are your cons and here are the loss that the organization is going to face from time perspective, from dollar value, or whatever it is. But then sometimes they understand, but sometimes, I don't blame IT for wanting to do that, because it essentially is still a user account, even though we call it a service account, right? It's
True.
just that our process is not that sophisticated yet, where you could have a service principal. That way you don't have to worry about MFAs. That would keep IT have much more peace of mind, not having to worry about it. So I think that's the thing. I think helping them understand that, hey, we're not there yet, but here are the different ways you can work with it. But
That is
keep
true.
in mind, if you have any very business critical solutions, then make sure that you have policies that are modified or customized in a way that it can run a little longer.
That is true. And of course, service principles you can use for certain things, but you can't use for everything. I had a customer recently whereby we were installing a Microsoft solution, but it had to be manually deployed in. It wasn't through AppSource or through Solution Center. And they wanted, we said we have to have a service account. We refer to it as a service account, but it's essentially user can log into it. We need to log in as that user. And they went, MFA. And we went, it's going to break. And they went, excuse me. And they went, okay, conditional access policies. And we went, okay, you're going to need to whitelist all of the Microsoft IPs and keep an eye on it to change. And accept that. And they went,
it doesn't usually work that way. You can't really, those IPs change, those ranges change. You can always keep that in conditional access doesn't work all the time. But maybe token policies will, just figure out what's acceptable from your token policy configuration, and then try and set that up.
Well, this client turned around and went, okay, conditional access policy is way too complicated. MFA. And they went back to the MFA. and we went, I arranged for them to talk to Microsoft. And Microsoft went, we understand, because they said, how is this Microsoft best practice? I went, yeah, okay, we get that. It's an exception to it. Exceptions happen. And then we don't do exceptions. So we said, as the delivery partner, we actually said, if you want MFA, if you're going to enable MFA, the number one, we are telling you it's going to break, and number two, we're not going to deploy the project and start this until you signed a waiver, full discllaimer. That at the point where that if anything happens to it because of MFA, we're not responsible.
It's not us.
It's not us. IT were involved on the project, the governance people, the security people, they were involved on the project, and we got the signed disclaimer. And we went and installed it. And 3.5 weeks later,
guess what?
client goes, it's not working. and we go, we take a look and we go, MFA.
Yeah, but I think it has helped to kind of keep the customers in the know of what to expect. They probably haven't thought about MFA at the time, but then we always kind of leave a disclaimer. Hey, just in case, a year or two down the line, if you decide, guess what's going to happen? So if something breaks, think about it, and try and see if you can refresh the token or just give them steps on how they can do it. But it kind of just helps to keep them aware. Like, you may not be thinking about this, but just so you know, if this ever happens, expect things to break.
It's funny because I came across a client where they had realized it, but they hadn't realized it consciously. Because we were doing a discovery and talking about processes and talking about environments. So they went, well, we're running everything in the default environment.
Yeah.
And I sort of went, okay. And in the back of my mind, I'm going, oh God, business critical processes. And they were like, Microsoft support's around. I'm like, Microsoft support is not around. For your default environment, you do not have some anyway. And they went, and users are running processes, so they've got Power Automate flows in place under their own personal accounts. And I thought, oh, and they went, and they had MFA in place, and they went, but the problem is that, we've discovered that our users need to log in every X number of days to ensure that things keep working. As an actually log into the system. And I went, and they were aware of this. So even when somebody was on holiday, because people go on holiday, but they owned that automation process. They had to take a device that they could log into the corporate network with to authenticate every X number of days.
Oh my gosh.
And I sort of went, you've sort of understood the problem and you've sort of got a solution in place, but that doesn't fix the underlying issue,
Yeah.
which is you need to do that, leaving aside the whole default environment thing
Yeah.
and the fact that processes should not be owned by a single user in
Yeah,
regular user
that's
fraud.
just setting yourself up for a single point of failure too. Like one person
Yes,
having MFA and all the setup, and like you said, if they're on vacation, you don't want to disturb them. What if they lose the device or something? They don't know where to
what
go
happens if
again.
there's somewhere that they don't have internet?
Yeah, same. Yeah, so many different use cases, right? It could be anything.
Yes, we took that customer on a discovery journey.
I think it's these are learnings. I think it's trials and tribulations. They learn along the way, and then kind of help come up with a case for a business justification to IT, saying, "Hey, here's what happened. Maybe can we look at maybe adjusting our policies a little bit
Yeah,
until we have much more sophisticated support for the service principles or things like that. So you don't have to worry about MFA anymore."
I think everybody is going to be delighted when that finally comes in.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's going to make all the lives of all the Power Platform admins, all of the governance admins, and IT in general too, all of their lives easier for sure.
Definitely. Brilliant. Well, Geetha, thank you so much for your time and coming on the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. This was fun. It's always good to hear stories that someone else has been through the same way. So it's definitely good to see how we all go navigate through such issues together. So this is good. Thanks for having me.
It's been a pleasure. Viewers, we hope that you've enjoyed this episode and taken some valuable lessons about MFA out of it. Feel free to take a look at the other Oops Factor episodes, subscribe to the channel, take a look at the blog. And if you would like to come on the show, hit the link somewhere in the description below, put your details in, and I'd love to have you on. But above all, have an amazing day.